about the fate of the country of Ukraine. So Ukraine is a country in Eastern Europe, and Ukraine has a very lengthy history. Ukraine was originally once one country, and then some guys called the Mongols showed up and said, you know what, screw you Russia and screw you Ukraine, you guys suck. So they took them over, and then of course they became separate countries, and then Russia took over Ukraine, and until the fall of the Soviet Union, Ukraine was never been an independent country until the 1991. Ukraine also had nukes, but they gave them away to Russia because they said that they don't want it, so in case so Russia does not declare war on them ever. But the reasoning for the current conflict is more than just Russia's evil and Russia wants to take over all of Ukraine. Ukraine is a very large country. It is one of the largest countries in all of Europe. Ukraine has on the same population as country as Poland, mostly because Ukraine has very low birth rates. But the whole war in Ukraine is over this area. Yeah. Over the past 7 years, Ukraine refused to recognize the two republics, the Luhansk and Donetsk PL, as official countries. And Russia asked for 7 years for Ukraine to broker a deal with these countries. But Ukraine refused and escalated war with these two countries. The whole conflict of Ukraine and Russia actually started in 2014. This has been ongoing since 2014. Of course, Crimea, which already is owned by Russia, and these areas which are basically pro-Russian forces, which are basically independent countries. And over the past decades, we have seen countries don't want to be a part of other countries anymore. These countries basically split apart, and that's what's called balkanization. We might be seeing the balkanization of Ukraine in real effect. These two countries are official countries according to Russia. And these are the belligerents of both sides. And basically, with the whole Crimea thing, Russia already had a Russian base, and Crimea is basically like 99% Russian. Same thing of these these small areas of Ukraine. These small areas of Ukraine is around like it's very, very Russian. These are not very much Ukraine. So, and really these 4 provinces down here in Ukraine are not very, really Ukrainian. They are very Russian. And really anything east of the river, which I think what's really likely going to happen is that Ukraine will be split in half, with Kiev being the capital of the current Ukraine, with the current Ukraine capital still being Kiev, but basically, with the exception of Kiev, the country is split around the river, as though, of course, Ukraine is basically divided into 2 parts. And why is Ukraine so big? Well, that's because the Soviet government. The Soviet government basically gave Ukraine all of this land. All of this land in Ukraine all of this eastern and southern land was given by the Soviet government and other countries during the Cold War. Real Ukrainian land is really the northern parts, excluding the eastern portions, and of course the portions bordering other countries. And we can see the Ukraine language map. The Ukraine language map is basically like this. For example, Crimea and the pro-Russian regions mostly speak Russian, with some Ukrainian pockets here and there. Crimea does not even speak Russian whatsoever. And of course, on the borders of several other countries, they speak, of course, other languages. This. And actually, Crimea is the one region that does not want to be a part of Ukraine the most. Even back in 1991, Crimea wanted to be a part of. Only 54% of Crimeans didn't want to be a part of Ukraine. In Sevastopol, it was only 57%. The rest of Ukraine wanted to become independent. Crimea barely wanted to become independent. So the first part is Crimea. Crimea basically is a place that shouldn't be a part of Ukraine. Crimea is very culturally different than the rest of Ukraine. It is a place that basically does not want to be a part of Ukraine. And it has been a part of Ukraine since 2014. Let's look at how they vote politically. Ukraine, the rest of Ukraine, and the eastern portion of Ukraine always vote differently. Ukraine is basically just divided in half. Basically, this is the Ukrainian map of languages. Most of Ukraine does not speak. Most of the eastern portion of Ukraine does not speak Ukrainian. Same thing with Crimea. They never speak that language. And most of the people who live in Crimea speak Russian. So, and are Russian as well. Same thing with an ethnic map of Ukraine. Even then, Crimea is still mostly, yeah. And again, the modern areas that basically don't want to be a part of Russia, don't want to be a part of Ukraine, are basically the entire Donbass region at this point. But again, it's only a small part of the Donbass region. Once again, Ukraine refused to pull out of that region or even make a peace deal with this region. So basically, Ukraine bought this war on themselves. And people calling that Ukraine's a democracy, Ukraine is actually no better than Russia. Ukraine is basically no different than a place like Tsarist Russia, where Ukraine is basically ruled by the oligarchs and of course the people who have a lot of money. So basically, Russia and Ukraine governmentally are two very similar countries. And another factor about the current Ukraine thing is the fact that people in America and in Europe don't support any war in Ukraine. A minority of people in America, and then of course in many NATO countries like Turkey, Germany, UK, France, Spain, and Canada, most people do not support any war in Ukraine. So the Ukraine war was already unpopular as it is. And I think another reason why this war is happening is because globalism is falling. Globalism is basically, everybody must follow Twitter's rules. Twitter is losing its power, and big tech will soon start losing their power over everything else. Well, the fall of globalism is another reason why this is happening. Globalism basically wants every country to follow a one-size-fits-all narrative. Wants everybody to follow wokeness and stuff like that. Which again, a majority of countries do not like wokeness. Most of Africa and Asia, and of course Russia and Belarus, I don't think Belarus, but Russia does not support wokeness. And even countries in South America are pushing back against said wokeness. Because nobody cares about wokeness. Even states in America don't like wokeness. Just go to any red state and you'll see why. But the fate of Ukraine is very, very simple. People think that Ukraine is basically like Mustache Man 2. But all Russia really wants is these two countries to be independent. And if that's all he really wants, and because Ukraine does not listen to the Minsk Treaty, because Ukraine does not care, well, Ukraine, again, as I said earlier in the video, has brought this onto themselves, and basically, we'll wait to see what really happens with Ukraine. So, that's basically about this video. Goodbye.